These are just a few of my favorite tools that I'm going to use to do this gel overlay. Of course, I've started with washed hands, and I like to scrub on my nails like I'm removing polish with my trusty blue squares and acetone. I like this metal pusher to clean any dead skin away from the nail plate. It makes cuticle that is ready to be nipped away safely just kind of stand up and wave at me. And I'm able to get rid of anything that will come in the way of proper adhesion. I've sped up the filing, but I do have a pattern. I tend to go from one side of the eponychium to the other. I'm following that cuticle line on the nail bed. I'm making sure both sides of the sidewall are etched. I'm making sure that all over that nail plate is etched. And I'll freshen up the free edge one more time if need be. And I'm fairly systematic with it to just make sure that every bit of that nail is properly etched and ready for proper adhesion. This is huge because anywhere that isn't etched, any part of the nail plate that is still left shiny, it's not going to stick, whether we're talking gel, acrylic, whatever. I dry brushed it clean to get rid of any debris, to get out of the way, again, for proper adhesion. I'm loving that Young Nail Protein Bond. Typically, books, directions will say one thin coat. I like to do 2 thin coats that I believe equal to 1 coat. I do such thin coats to make sure that I'm being in complete control. I'm not necessarily covering the whole nail each time. The second coat, I'm just going back and hitting wherever I didn't before. That's the Young Nails Fiber Gel that I'm loving right now. I like the sheer pink. I am close to dry brushing this layer on. I am pushing it into the etching of the nail plate. I am making sure not to touch the skin. This is also considered a slip layer. Wherever we've now made it shiny, your next bead of gel will sort of self-level out to. You'll notice I'm not taking the time to cure in between. It's because I'm doing such a thin layer, I'm not really giving it a chance to run into those sidewalls. Thin, 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 and make sure you remove anything that's touching the skin because that's going to come in the way of proper adhesion. We're going to cure it. And this time I pick up a bigger bead and I try to sort of glide it on and or use circular motions to go down the nail plate, trying never to lift up the brush, just to keep in contact with the product and sort of glide it where you want it. It is a self-leveling product and you'll get used to its motion. When you go into the light, it might get hot. Tell your client to bring your hand out and put it back in. That'll slow down the catalyst / friction that's happening to make that gel cure. I just want a thin overlay, so I'm stopping at that level and I'm wiping these with alcohol. If you were building these up for a structured gel mani or an apex, that's a different story. Since there's hardly any product on this now, there's not a lot of filing to be had. There's not a lot of divots. There's not a lot of peaks and valleys. There isn't much chance to. So I'm just going through and making sure that the free edge is not attached to the skin in any way. I'm making sure that when I look down the barrel and the sides of the nail, that when I apply the polish, even though it's going to be a few layers, it's going to look smooth, that I'm making my canvas nice. Whenever you filed, get out that dry brush again to get rid of any debris and filings you're gonna have. I love this Perfect Black from Madame Glam. It's absolutely a staple in my drawer. This design requires a good solid layer of it. I'm gonna do 2 thin coats. It's always best to err on the side of thin when you're dealing with gel polish, as it has a tendency to run, wrinkle, pool. It wants to self-level too, so it's constantly moving until you get it in the light. And as I've mentioned so many times, it's important to me to clean up as you go. I know it takes more time, but in my opinion, slow down, make purposeful movements with your polish, with your gel polish, and you will go faster because you'll make less mistakes as I make a mistake. Of course, I've cured it in between layers. In the second coat, I can just be kind of light-handed, fill in any translucent spots, smooth it out, cap any part of the edge that I didn't get to before because they are so short. But worth it for longevity. And with this design, I kind of like a little bit of the black showing around the outline. I think it gives it a little more dimension, and it's just good practice to cap the edges. Typically, I like to do this with the first coat, but Solwink is so far the best of the dense cat eye polishes that I have found, gel polishes. You do want to shake the bottle up a little bit because the magnetic goodness has a tendency to settle to the bottom. If it was important to you that your design be just so, I would suggest magnetizing each one individually and curing as you go. But with this design, it doesn't have to be. I just kind of want them awake, which is what I'm doing here. You'll notice sometimes you have to do this sort of side to side motion to get all the little magnetic shards to sort of stand at attention. It's such a fun technique. I'm going to use a couple jellies. Jellies like this one and the one that I showed you before is meant to go over a metallic, which again just means it's super sheer. You can also make your own jelly by using a generous amount of top coat and just a dab of any pigmented color. That's really fun to experiment, especially if you've got a top coat that's kind of getting junk or thick or got a glitter in it and a color that's wearing out. Play with that and you might come up with your new favorite jelly polish to work with. I'm using both a pink and a magenta just because I wanted to see the difference of the two. I kind of just wanted to play with the jewel tones of it. She is my favorite top coat. Get you some. It is my absolute favorite. It wears great. It stays shiny. I can put it over gel. I can put it over acrylic. It's my absolute favorite. It's my absolute fave. Sometimes when it's brand new, you got to do 2 thin coats of it, but it is worth it. The longevity and the shine on this, I'm so impressed. I cured that top coat and now I'm rubbing in some rose cuticle oil from Young Nails, which I'm loving right now. It just smells super good and I love this technique. It's super fun and super easy.